folks. Grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys presents Beyond Bragging Rights, the Cascade Clash. I'm Mike with EJ. How's it going, pal?
I'm still just riding high, I'm buzzing from our weekend, buzzing from the Tigers this afternoon. Yeah, vibes are high right now.
You're feeling good about the Tigers, man. I mean, we have a lot. I know that you're excited and everything like that, but hey, guess what, buddy? I have word. I have the word of Bob Nutting that they're going to make things right. That this is not the type of baseball that they want to be playing. Their commitment is still to make it to the playoffs next year, and they're taking the right steps. They're not getting rid of the GM, who made no moves to get a couple bats to help our generational pitcher. Um, and they're keeping them. I think they're keeping their manager too.
I think they extended them.
They extended him, yeah. Which I mean, that's what you want to see. I mean, you want to have that type of consistency there. More Donnie ball. Let's go. So I know that you're feeling really good right now, EJ. But you just wait, buddy, because I've got the word of Bob Nutting. If there's anything about Bob Nutting, his word is his bond. So that man, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing it next year.
Oh yeah. You just wait. You just wait. Book it, he says. Book it. But I am riding high from this weekend. I'm very sad about the Pirates, but I'm riding high from this weekend. So what a weekend, man. What
It
what a weekend we had.
it was. And before we go any further, so I just want to give this PSA to everyone that's listening to this. So one, yes, new segment. We're super excited about it. And it's truthfully, this is the first time we're obviously doing this. We've kind of talked through how we're going to do this, but we're going to do a little bit of feeling it out. So excuse us if once we get to this segment that if it's a little bit discombobulated. I don't think it will be, but we're still kind of finding our groove. But we really love the idea of this, which I will get into in a little bit, because this episode is going to be like a mega episode. So if you have not gone to the bathroom, if you have not gotten a drink, whatever you're doing, if you're driving in the car and you have a long commute, we're here with you,
Hmm.
because this is like a 2-for-1 episode. Not only are we going to break down our tailgate that happened this last weekend, for the first part, then we get into the beyond bragging rights, and I will explain a little bit more about just kind of what the goal of this segment is, when we get there. But let's first let's just talk about this incredible Saturday that we had
Hmm. Hmm.
this last weekend.
Yeah. This is definitely gonna be a good episode to for if you got some chores to do around the house, inside or outside the house, if you got a long drive, this is a good episode to just toss on light eat for a while. And let's get into the weekend. So um I mean we the post that we made on Instagram, I think says it well, is that like Penn State, if you ask any college football fan or really any sports fan, I think that there's an argument to make that Penn State is on the Mount Rushmore of venues to attend for a sporting event. Very easy to make that argument. But when you factor in that it's a top 10 matchup, could be top 5 matchup, could have been, honestly. Uh, it's game days there. It's at night. It's a whiteout. Like, just the absolute electricity of that environment. Incredible first time for both of us going to game day, going to Penn State. First time for Penn State, first time for game day. It was awesome, man. It was really incredible. Um, from the moment we got there, I feel like everyone we met was super cool, super excited to be there. We were with Dave, your coworker, our member of Whiskers and Whiskeys Nation, and his family, and Ducks fan. Everyone was super, super respectful, almost to the point of, like he just we were walking. He walked through the whole tailgate to get to the stadium completely, unhindered or unhindered. No issues, no jarring, no teasing or anything like that. Uh, didn't really happen the same way after the game, but everyone was fantastic. Really good vibes, really good camaraderie. Met a lot of really cool people. From the young guns sitting right next to us, our boys, to the older gentlemen that were behind us. My coworker, we went to go see him and his whole setup. They did it. I mean, we did it good. You know, we had the pickup truck, and we had the full kind of setup and everything. But man, having a Sprinter van in a big RV space filled up with a working television and a nice, a beautiful spread of food. I mean, that's the way to get it done. That's the way to tailgate. So it was of all the tailgates I went to, I feel like there's a lot of crossover between those folks and folks you see at like a Pirates or Steelers game. That was like next level tailgating. I feel like at Penn State, they really, really did it well. Your
Yeah.
thoughts, EJ?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm just thinking through there's so many things. There's so many things
So
for us to
many
talk
things.
about. Uh, so you said we get there early. So one of the things, and we can kind of talk through this, is just like some tips and our
I
experiences and
think
things that we
yes.
liked, that we did not like, just so that you guys can kind of learn from our experience. So we get there, we have to stay in Altoona, right? So
Mhm.
State College, which is, I'm going to guess, the only other piece of evidence we have is when you and I were looking at Tuscaloosa a few years ago. But State College is very similar to a place like Tuscaloosa, where there are hotels, obviously, because of the university, but when it's game day, there's no really other reason to be there if you don't live in those cities, unless it's a football Saturday. So if you are planning on going to any of these, especially big stadiums that hold a lot of people in smaller towns, you have to look for stuff well in advance.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
because of that, we couldn't even stay in State College. We had to stay in Altoona about 45 minutes, which even that was, we were lucky to get a place right
Yes.
on
Yes.
Friday and Saturday. So that was kind of the first thing. But it was really cool. We get there so early, right? And around
8 a.m.
8:30, yeah, it was like
Or no, yeah, about 9. We planned to get there at 8 a.m. when the locks
yeah.
opened. We actually got there around 9 o'clock after a
Yep.
little sheets fuel up and stuff
Yep.
like that. Load some ice in the coolers and
Ice,
everything.
yeah.
And it was,
It
we weren't sure what to expect, but really, I mean, it was pretty. I would say what, about like one third full or something like that by the time we got there. Like people were still kind of getting going and everything. So we had plenty of time to, get some. I will say we were in lot 41. Highly recommend that lot. We had to get a pass from Game Time. Zero shout out to Game Time. Anti shout out to Game Time. Game Time's the absolute worst. I cannot not recommend them enough. They're terrible. I highly recommend not using them ever for anything. Um, but luckily, our pass that we had, which we went, shout out Danny for saving our lives on this and actually getting the pass. Danny, you're the true hero of this story. But very lucky that our parking spot backed up to a nice little median, and lots of folks were, if you were parked up against the median, you were tailgating on the median, which is pretty deep, several feet deep, about 16 probably, because my tent was 8 by 8. You could have
yeah.
fit two. Um, so, we set up on the median there. Great spot, got everything just kind of set up. And then we made the trek, about a mile trek over to the old main building for game day. And I tell you, man, as we walked up, I could hear Coach talk about Alabama. Actually, as we walk up, I like did a little
Yep.
bit of a hot step to try to get over there. And man, it was. I was also surprised. And I don't know if this is. I know if you go to a place like James Madison, some place that doesn't get game day, like they stay packed in like all day long. Like it's you're like if you're not there, one of the first people, you just have no chance of getting close. But at Penn State, when we got to game day around 10 a.m., people had kind of filtered out. We were able to get pretty close. I think you may, if eagle-eyed listeners may have been able to see our signs on game day. It was hard to tell because we were holding it up, trying to look at the big screen, see if we're up there. I think you could perhaps see our signs on game day.
Yeah, I think so too. So once we finally got across campus to Old Main, yeah, you're just you we like you said, we could hear it before we saw it. We could hear Coach Saban, and like you said, it was just kind of like luck that he's talking about Alabama. Obviously, they had their big game against Georgia, and like one of the first things that drew my eyes and how it was set up was like where Old Main steps are, it was kind of elevated from where they were in front of us. And it was pretty cool because you have obviously the desk that they have that they sit at the main desk, they have their backs to us. But when they do the smaller segments, those stages are right next to it and facing us. So that was kind of cool. I believe when we first got there, Kirk and maybe coach were down
Yeah.
on a screen, when they do the little pointers for listeners and they touch the screen and talk about whatever X's and O's in a game. So that was kind of cool because then you really got to see them because again, if you don't think about it when you're watching it, but their backs to the crowd, right? The entire time that they're standing or sitting at that normal the main desk. So that was kind of cool just to see, and like you said, it was not as full as I thought. We had already started to see college kids because they had the orange Home Depot helmets heading out, and it makes sense from the standpoint of like if they got there, if they got to be close, and then they just wanted to drink, right? You
Yeah.
couldn't drink in that area, the
Well, you
one
could.
closest. So the
The closest one you couldn't.
couldn't, yeah,
But
the
like, yeah,
closest you could,
where we
yeah,
were staying most of the time, you
yes.
could definitely drink. Yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of had it segmented where like the closest to all of that, you had to go through like a metal detector. You couldn't bring any signs, and you couldn't bring any alcohol or any drinks, any. But they did have like a good bit of areas to stand that weren't in that section, which was great.
We
We
actually, I was gonna say, are you gonna say who we stood next to?
Yes, I was going to say,
Yeah,
and
go
we
ahead.
naturally gravitated towards, the game day sign, not Jesus, although the Jesus signs were were there, and there was quite a few of them. But Old Crimson, we got next to the famous Wazoo sign. Missed an opportunity to talk to the people. We kind of like were going to, and by the time we did, they were kind of talking, and we wanted to make sure we saw everything. So a
Yeah,
bit
we
of a
could
missed
have.
opportunity there,
Had
but
we asked, we definitely could have held Old Crimson. I think that's my one regret of the day is that we didn't hold
yeah.
Old Crimson because they're letting, it was like a dad and a couple of his kids that had Wazoo gear on. And they were definitely like people were walking up and like holding like there were other people holding it. So he was definitely letting other people hold it. So I kind of wish I would have held Old
Didn't
Crimson, but
not
yeah.
even cross my mind until this second. I was
Yeah,
just like, oh, I thought we were just gonna go talk to the guy and be like, "What's the deal with this? Like, this is awesome. How long you been in this? Like, you know what I mean?" It never crossed my mind to actually like
yeah.
hold it.
We could have absolutely held Old
God
Crimson.
damn
Yeah,
it!
because there's a couple of Penn State kids that were holding it. So
I
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so as Mike said, like what was kind of cool, like they were really far back from the cameras that are. We learned a lesson on the size of sign you need to feel comfortable that it's going to be seen, because like where the main cameras are closest to the stage, we were way too far for the size sign that we
we at
had.
least need to have height. Like I think we
Yeah,
could have gotten seen if we would have like brought a couple of yards, which we talked about doing, but we didn't follow through. We'll tape a
yeah.
couple yardsticks and stick them up. But
I mean, even then though, like those people are professionals. Like those
yeah.
polls are beyond that, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, oh, Old
yeah,
Crimson for sure,
yeah.
for sure. But
And
like,
Jesus.
yeah, yeah, Jesus, yes, yes. Those people, yeah, they come prepared, yes. But
But
um,
one thing that was cool, as soon as I have time, I plan on trying to go back and try and find a feed. But they did have, so because, like I said, we were basically halfway back, right? They kind of cut the field into two, that they had the stages on, and they had a wire camera that was on a wire that was going back and forth because those big famous sign like the Wazoo sign and stuff were so far back. They really wanted to get those as well. So I think that's our best shot. So it's likely probably like a B-roll out of commercial, like to a commercial type
yeah, yeah,
thing is likely when um, our signs would have been seen because there was a good, like they really went slow and really,
yeah.
went around and tried to capture all of the signs. So yeah, so that was just cool to just kind of like be there for that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it was. And they um they do a lot of stuff like during commercials, like they do like, sign contests and they start saying some stuff to get the crowd fired up and everything. And then we did make our way over for the field goal kick,
Mhm, sure did.
which we couldn't quite hear everything that was going on. I mean, you could, they were pumping the audio through, but like I couldn't quite make out the whole situation because we couldn't see it, but we were right behind the field goal posts, about 10 feet to the left of where the ball eventually sailed through. And that one kid, like the ball came through, beautiful kick, ball came through, one kid caught it, him and six of his buddies took off like a shot. They were gone as soon as they caught that ball. They didn't know if they were going to be asked to give it back, but they were not taking that chance. They were gone out of
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and it was not even something that would cross my mind. Like obviously you think about, okay, if the ball's kicked in the to the crowd and you're like, oh man, someone's gonna catch this ball. But I didn't even think about it until they were just like, yeah, and then
Yeah.
just took off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we waited a little bit too long because we weren't sure what time he did it. Like we knew it was gonna come, obviously, but we didn't know until they kind of announced it, and then the entire crowd, kind of shuffled over there. But that was pretty cool. And I will say, because you said we couldn't see it, a very cool thing was, even though obviously the desk was, the guys' backs were to us for most of the time, they did have big screens that just had the broadcast, right? So we
Mhm.
got to see the various segments that weren't involving them, the stories. Like it's just like the cable broadcast, right? And I guess you would assume that would be the case, but you never really know, right? If you're there live. So that's pretty cool too. So you could really just be there and still watch it and be a part of the crowd too. Um, they were giving away free t-shirts. That was a pretty cool. They had
Yeah.
like an entire not booth, what are those things
Like a
called? Like
little like
cart
trailer. A little
trailer.
trailer,
That's what I'm
yeah.
looking for. Yeah, a
Little
trailer that
trailer.
had free shirts. They went pretty fast. I'm sure like sizes went, popular sizes probably went pretty fast too, but I
They
thought that was
did
a cool little
offer
touch.
they did have a sign that like has all the designs on it, and there was one that was black and they said not available, not for the whiteout. Like it was written, it was crossed out. I don't
Oh,
know if you saw that, but yeah.
no.
Yeah, they put a piece of paper
That's
over it, said not
hilarious.
available. Who would wear this during a whiteout? So yeah, so that was pretty cool. But they wrapped
Yeah,
that up. They close up shop there at like 11, which
yeah.
trying to make sure they can tear down and stuff quickly. And that was about when we left to go. We were gonna go to the bookstore, but that didn't open till noon. But we did stop at a little kiosk, got ourselves a couple shirts, got myself a hoodie, and then we went because I just didn't. The weather had me in a complete loop. I thought it might be cold later, but no,
Then
way
you're gonna
over
cut
packed for the
sleeves
game.
off of a
Yeah,
sweatshirt.
yeah, yeah. Did not happen. But we got our ice cream. Then we got our creamery ice cream, and then we went over back to the tailgate for our taste test. Um, and it was shocking.
Hmm.
The results were shocking.
Now, just to remind people, the idea for this was you had Penn State, if you guys don't already know, is very famous for having a creamery on campus. It's like 100-year-old creamery. Even like Ben and Jerry, before they started their ice cream company, came to learn how to make ice cream from this creamery, Berkey Creamery. So that's just an interesting fact about Penn State. And then another interesting fact about Oregon. So it's not necessarily affiliated with the University of Oregon, but on the Oregon coast up near Portland is Tillamook. And we kind of talked about this. So our idea was to have a blind taste test because, especially Penn State alum, which was the majority of the people there, or current students are clearly, if you ask them what the best ice cream is, it's gonna be Berkey, right? So we wanted to put that to the test. And truthfully, we thought Tillamook was going to be at a disadvantage because Berkey we got straight from the creamery, and Tillamook, we didn't have it shipped in from Oregon. We just went to the grocery stores because it's a national brand as well. So we really thought they were going to be at a disadvantage, but
It was,
Tillamook won our Clash of the
not
Creameries.
only did they win, they creamed the creamery. I mean,
They
in a
creamed.
landslide. I think we had like two people opt for the creamery as opposed to Tillamook.
Yeah.
And like even me, like I mean, I had my first sample, and I was like, oh, okay, good. Like, and I knew
Yes.
it was the creamery because it was meltier, so like
Yeah.
I kind of knew that. And then I had the Tillamook. I'm like, uh-oh. Like it was undeniable. I wanted to vote for the creamery, but it was undeniably better.
Just it's just like, again, both ice creams are fantastic. Tillamook was just a smidge chocolatier. Like
Yeah.
it was just enough to notice.
Yeah.
And even when we got to like there was another container. I don't know if you ate out of it. We bought a lot of ice cream. There
Some would
was
say too much. So,
there was a Berkey half gallon that was firmer than the one that we initially scooped from that I had a bite out of later, and it still compared to Tillamook, even when it was firmer, was still a smidge behind it. So
mm.
I don't know. Maybe we got to test this out. I believe in 2 years. I think that's when Penn State takes their trip out to Eugene. So maybe we need to get the Oregon fans to see if they are going to choose Tillamook straight from their creamery out there, or if they're going to pick Berkey. I think that could be
That would
cool.
be we'd have to learn a lot more about dry ice in
we
order
learned
to
we learned a
happen.
lot about dry ice,
Yes, yes,
and it was a little bit more difficult than we had thought. But hey,
yeah.
I feel like we could figure it out.
Speaking of difficulties, I feel like we can bring it. There are three major gripes for me for the weekend, and,
Yeah.
and I think gripe number one is after our plan was all right after we do this ice cream contest, let's just have a day, right? Let's sit down, let's watch some football, let's have a day. And it turns out that the internet infrastructure is just dog shit at Penn State. Like, and it's a no thing. Like, I talked to my coworker. I'm like, is there any tips? Is there anything? No, no. Someone had a Starlink set up that they quickly password protected because a bunch of people were jumping on. And man, it was impossible. Like I got the game up for a little bit that died. Like there was just no reception. Everyone was just because everyone's on their phones, and when you're in a big area, everyone's on their phones and towers are down or there's not the many towers, like you gotta get screwed. So Penn State, I would love to, I mean, just or really Comcast someone, maybe go to Penn State and strike a deal with them to bring 5G across the campus because that was just absolutely dreadful experience.
Yeah, you can't have 111,015 people at this football game. Now imagine all the other people that didn't get tickets to the football game that are there. Everyone's trying to use their phone. Everyone had the same idea we did. You're going to be there from 8:30 all the way till like 6 p.m. to go into the game. So naturally you'd want to watch some noon games and the 3:30 games, but we did our best. It didn't work. Surprisingly though, we were worried that it would like we would get bored or it would feel long without watching the games. Was not the case. I feel
Not the
like it
case at all.
flew by. Before you knew it, it was like we need to eat dinner and we need to like break our tailgate down to get into the stadium.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's a testament to all the great people that we met and hung out with. Because yeah, it just flew by, and you're having a lot of fun just hanging out with people, making new friends, like which you do at a tailgate, obviously. But it was great, man. Like really cannot say enough good things about the crowd over at Beaver Stadium. So really, really, the time did fly by. It was a lot of fun.
Rep
Uh,
number two.
Gripe number two. Uh, I appreciate that there's construction happening at Penn State Stadium, but like, buddy, we have we have got to find a way to make it easier for people to get in and out because we went into the stadium. There was like temporary. First off, it wasn't very clear on like which entrance is like for general admission versus like it was if you were a special person, your entryway was very clearly marked, but for everyone else, it was like a bit of a shit show trying to figure out where you are. And then we had to go up all these temporary stairs to get up to the top bowl. And then on the way out, for those that, did not watch the game, spoiler alert, double overtime ended very quickly. Penn State loss. So everyone runs out very quickly. And we sat, I've never had, none of us have ever, the whole crowd is sitting there like, I've never had this happen before. We sat for like 10 minutes trying to like walk down the stairs, just like a total backlog, like log jam,
Not moving.
not
Not moving.
moving
Not
at
not not
all.
slow moving, right? That happens at stadiums. Takes a long time to get down because every section and every like level are all trying to go down the same, three staircases. But I've never stood still at a staircase for 10 to 15 minutes. It was
Terrible.
a hazard.
Yeah. And yeah, yes, it is a hazard because if there was an emergency that would require people to get out quickly, that wasn't going to be happening.
Now,
So, yeah, it was terrible, man. It was terrible trying to get out of there, and even get into there. So, I mean, it was just, I guess that they're building more steps or whatever, but like, dude, like build more steps, build a freaking escalator, like do something because man, it was awful getting out of there. Um, so between the walk in, walk out, there was obviously a game that happened.
yes, there was. And one thing I will say, so we luckily did some research, and I'm glad that I caught it. I mean, I guess I'll just kind of like, pat myself on the back. But one of the we love college football, and one of the worst things about college football is bleachers. And I get it from the standpoint of like you can pack a lot more people in, and that's usually the name of the game when it comes to college is putting as many people into a stadium as possible. But bleachers are just so uncomfortable. Obviously, we're not like old people and bringing our clip-on seat backs, and we're not, boosters, so we're not getting our own sat there. So luckily there at Beaver Stadium, the end zone that's above the student section where we sat, it has actual seats. So it must be an addition that's relatively newish. I don't know the history behind it, but that's what, if I had to guess, that was the case. So it was definitely worth us identifying that if you're going to this game and you're not going to be in the lower level, because I can understand wanting to be close to the field. If you're already going to be relegated to the top,
I will say though,
well, I was,
I
yeah,
will say
yeah.
it, even though
Get
we
the
were in the upper,
seats.
even though, yes, get the seats in the upper bowl, and it does not feel like you're up.
No.
Like, I mean, I've been up top in the nosebleeds at plenty of stadiums. I did not feel like it. Like you feel like you're on top of the field. You can see everything. It was great. Like those seats were awesome. Like you really felt very close to the field. Like it's definitely a very vertical stadium.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which
yeah,
and I'm with you because I know like I've never been, but I've have done too many Google Earth and map. I don't even know what you call them, distractions, and a lot of college stadiums, especially like pro, it's a little different, but college stadiums are one big bowl. Right there's just one big bowl. Even Autzen, but Autzen was pretty steep. Was similar, but something like the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is built out. So if you're in that last row, I'd even say like if I remember correctly, Michigan Stadium was very similar. Like when I went to the Big House for a hockey game, I was at the Winter Classic, and I was in end zone underneath the scoreboard last row, and you were just so far back. Now, mind you, it probably felt even further back as a hockey rink is smaller than a football stadium, so it might not feel as bad for a football game, but it's just built out, which is fine. Like I get it. It's not like I'm critiquing that, but I expected 111,000 people to be the same, right? Like a big lower bowl, and you're just kind of like you're out there, right? But you're right. It was stacked pretty high and vertical, which put us on top of the field. And there's not a bad seat in that house at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
So don't worry about that. If especially for whiteouts, are expensive. If you can only afford an upper level seat, I recommend trying to get one in the students above the student section with actual seats. But there's really not a bad seat in that
Yeah,
house,
I mean,
which is
honestly,
nice.
spend the money
Yeah.
on parking in
Yep.
a good lot like lot 41, and then so you have a nice tailgate, and then yeah, as far as seats go, like pretty inexpensive options in the upper bowl there. Um, Yeah, and game was fantastic. I mean,
Game was, well, before we break down football, why don't we talk about just like atmosphere? So
yeah,
it was, I've been to a couple loud just football stadiums, not necessarily just college, but like I've been to Seattle for a Monday night football game, which they're obviously known for breaking the decibel record for the NFL. I think maybe Kansas City and Arrowhead might have broken it by a smidge, but like CenturyLink or whatever, Lumen Field, whatever it's called now, out in Seattle is known for being really, really loud. And I've been there, and it was definitely deafening. And I will say that while Seattle and just my experience and Ford Field, I've been to Ford Field as well, which is known for being one of the louder NFL stadiums because obviously it's dome and been to both. I will say that at its loudest moments, Beaver Stadium was just as loud. Our section actually kind of moved as well
yeah,
when people were getting fired up, which was pretty cool. It wasn't as consistently loud, and some of that is probably the game itself, like how the game played out for most of the game. But at its loudest moments, especially to begin with, was deafening,
yeah.
which is pretty cool. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it didn't the pageantry was great. I mean, like the band is really, really solid. They have a national champion, majorette or dance leader, whatever she is. The drum major did a front flip. Like I actually told we were standing there, we're watching them get ready. I had this vibe that the Ducks were gonna win. I leaned over, I told EJ and Dave, I said 31-17 Ducks. Like I feel really good about this. Then the drum major came out, nailed a front flip. I said, change my mind, 24-6 Penn State. Like that's incredible athleticism. But it was a really good environment. They had like all the pomp, all the circumstance. Great scoreboard graphics. Scoreboard guy that did the replay was the most like trying to lean in and like get the crowd fired up as much
Home
as
field
possible.
one
Yeah,
ever, right?
yeah,
NFL, they usually try to stay pretty neutral. I
yeah.
don't know if that's like a rule or whatnot, but this camera operator was like an alum and was
Oh,
probably a booster. And yeah, there were times if you watch the game that, is it Desi Sutton? Is that Dennis Sutton? Whatever the D end is, the new, supposed to be the next Abdul Carter. He was going up against the left tackle, which has had struggles this year. Was the top transfer out of Nevada, but it's not, you're not in the Mountain West anymore. And there were definitely times where he was held, and that camera operator, especially when it was like
zoomed
going into a
right in
TV
on it.
break or was like some sort of stoppage in play, was really getting the crowd ramped
Hmm.
up by just
Hmm.
like over and over and over showing the non-call. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was great. And just visually seeing 111 white shirts. And then it was great to have Oregon, and they on their website, which is kind of cool. I just noticed it because obviously I went out to Oregon last year, is each game on the website, they like tell each fan which color to wear, right? And
Oh
like when
yeah,
you're
yeah.
going in to buy tickets. So this was going to be a green day for them. And so it was a great like contrast, which is why, if you were wondering, a lot of people think, hey, Penn State, you should wear white on whiteouts. And Franklin actually addressed that. I saw clips of it when didn't see it live, and he was like, the blue needs to contrast with the white. That's why we always still wear our blues.
Mm.
And that makes sense to me, even though it sounds cool to have everything white. But that the crowd, the Oregon fans were just so easy. And in this case, lucky for them, until I don't know if it's going to be the case any longer. But lucky for them, the crowd does not see them as real enemies. So it's not as big of a deal to stand out. But damn, that green stands out in a sea of white.
Yeah, they were pretty polite up until the end. And when I mean they so just for I don't know if this was caught on the broadcast, but after the which I still have not seen an angle where the Oregon running back was down. But when the fumble was overturned,
It was the knee. I talked
oh, it was
to
the
my
knee?
neighbors, and I still haven't watched clips yet. And I asked them, I was like, when they turned it on the stadium, like it was the elbow that they kept showing, and that's what it looked like. And apparently there was like a blade of grass that grazed the knee or the shin. And that was actually
Oh,
what, in that moment, right? In that
yeah,
moment where the arm looked like it was going down, not when he actually fumbled. It was before, like the broken tackle
yeah.
that led up to the final tackle. Apparently, it's the knee got blade of grass tickled the knee.
Regardless of that, the
Just so you know, I was just
the this after the touchdown, the thank you for sharing that. I'll have to try to find that. But the the student section just launched bottles into
yeah.
the end zone after that. So, naturally Oregon goes on to win the game. And the whole I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm like, oh no, they're not going to do that. Oh, I guess they are. The whole Oregon team just ran right down to the student section and just started, getting right in their faces and everything. And as we were leaving,
A
some
couple more bottles came down.
yeah, a couple more balls came down, and some lady goes to Dave and goes, uh, that was I don't mind losing, but that was really classless what your team did. Like that's like Ohio State type stuff. Dave, to his credit, just goes, "Okay, I'll tell him." And then she goes, "Oh well, yeah, I know that you're not gonna like they'll never know that I'm saying this." And he's like, "No, no, I'll make sure they know." And I'm like, credit to
Yeah.
him for like having that response, but yeah, yeah. I mean, he was unmolested as he went out and everything like that. Like he was fine. No one jumped him or anything. But yeah, I do think that this we have the makings of a rivalry here now.
So we were talking about this, just listeners, like going into this game, and actually it was pretty hilarious because we were thinking, full disclosure here, of our original plan. Because okay, so we've been thinking about this beyond bragging rights segment for years, right? And we kind of knew eventually we were going to get to this point. And so we were thinking about rivalries that exist. And this is a little bit of a tease into what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That are really intense rivalries that don't have a trophy, right? That makes sense, right? Why, we're talking about rivalries that do, but there's some really great ones that don't. Maybe they should. And then we started thinking, especially with college realignment, there's an opportunity for some of these schools that would never be considered rivals to become that now if they're constantly competing to like in the same conferences, and especially if it's high leverage and very important high stakes games. That's a quick way to build a rivalry, right? You keep losing to the same team, it doesn't matter how far away they are, how
Right.
many times you've played them, you start to get really pissed off. So this was actually a game we were thinking about, like, oh, this could be it, right? They played in the Big Ten championship game last year. They obviously ended up being top five or technically top six matchup going into this game. And there's a decent chance, regardless of what happened at this game, that they could meet again in the Big Ten championship again. And hell, they could meet again in the playoff. But it's just like Oregon's not going anywhere. Penn State's always been in the conversation for the Big Ten. So we were thinking about that. Then you couple that with the ESPN announcing their rivalry. What is it? Their spotlight, the Big Ten, or it was not ESPN, it was the Big Ten. Big Ten rivalry spotlight, where they're going to highlight 18 games this year, some of which have trophies and some of which don't. And this was the very first one. And boy, did they get a lot of blowback online being like, great rivalry. That's the first game I think about as Oregon and Penn State as rivals. And it really got like shit on essentially.
So,
And that made us feel better about like, not trying to like go too deep into this until it becomes a rivalry. And boy, I will tell you, I don't know if Penn State fans are going to continue to be as cordial to Oregon fans in the
no,
near.
no, especially if it is completely realistic that these teams could play one more time, even two more times this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would be very interested to if that does happen as they continue to play each other, what the sentiment is between uh Ducks and Nittany Lion fans.
And that was one of the things we said. We're like, if Oregon before, I mean, weeks leading into this, we're like, if Oregon goes into this game and wins, this is going to start to feel like a rivalry, right? Because you're going to start to to have animosity towards a fan base, and you've already started to get like the Oregon doesn't have any national championships. Like it already kind of started to eke in, but now when you're, Oregon and especially like their social media, like their official social media has leaned into this and they should. It's like, yeah, they came from the Pac-12 and immediately won the conference. And then I get it, they ended up losing in the playoff to the eventual national champion, who's also in their conference now. And then you play Penn State and now you do this to them again. So now you're 2-0 against Penn State and in the driver's seat to get to another to defend your conference championship in that new conference. Yeah, I feel like people, and again, a lot of it has to do with also um just good fans, right? Like I didn't see any issues between fans, like
No.
so that helps because rivalries like Michigan State, like you're not getting away with that, right? Fans
Mm.
are idiots. So but yeah, it was one of those instances. It happened. So now it's like interesting to see because then Oregon definitely posted about it. I don't know if you saw Dan Lanning's pregame speech about, the 11 or the 110,000 people in the stands, essentially just saying like, hey, guess what? They're not playing football today. They're not making tackles. They ain't doing shit. So it's like you start to rub a little bit of dirt into this, and yeah, I feel like we really do have now a rivalry in the making.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely everything we could have asked for from a game. It was fantastic.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend going. Yeah. Though my last gripe, my final
Okay.
gripe, which is, you know, common amongst any sporting event you go to, but definitely you know, expect to wait a while to get out of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Have a snack sitting in
Yeah.
the cooler and just kind of post up because we sat around for about an hour until we finally decided to get in the truck and get out of there. And yeah. So, but that's common.
That was what we were expecting, right? We weren't expecting to not just immediately be able to leave the stadium, but we were expecting to, take our time, let the first line of people try and sit in their car for forever. For us, it was easy to just grab some water. We had some food left over from the tailgate, just kind of chow down because, yeah, I mean, we didn't end up leaving the parking lot because of double overtime until about 1 a.m. So
Yeah.
it was really late, and then like we had mentioned, we had to drive to Altoona, so it was definitely a late night for us, early morning, but it was totally worth it. It really
Yeah.
lived up to it. Like I had this on a bucket list of myself, but it wasn't just Beaver Stadium. It was, specifically a whiteout. And that lived up to it. Game day was just extra, right?
That was
A
icing on the cake,
cherry on
man.
top
Yeah.
because obviously they only announced that a week before. We've been booking this trip for months out. So that was just awesome, but highly recommend. I would definitely go again. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to talk about any other games? It's kind of tough for us because, as we mentioned, we didn't really get to watch any of them. So I know, like Mike, you've rewatched the highlights, the extended highlights of Alabama and Georgia, and probably owe Alabama an apology.
No, no, I actually I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
No, I have nothing to say. I know that you said that like, oh, I should issue an apology and everything like that. I thought about it. I may have texted you, in a brief, emotional period of like, I'm back. I'm all the way back on this team. But you know what? I'm gonna
Uh,
reserve any apologies and any so what we beat Georgia. Like we always beat Georgia, you know. Let's
uh,
wait. Let's maybe hold off. Let's pump the brakes here. Let's see what they do against a team like the Vanderbilt
I was gonna say,
Commodores.
make sure
And
Pavia
then
doesn't do it again.
and then do what? I have no idea what you're talking about. I completely blacked that. Last season I skipped all of it.
Uh,
So I'm gonna pump the brakes on that. Uh yeah, I will say great win. Yeah, Ty Simpson played really well, made some good decisions. Doesn't
Guys, it's the reason why I want Mike to issue an apology. It's not just because he was upset about losing to Florida State. That's fine. I get it. It sucks. And a lot of Alabama fans are going through the realization that like Nick Saban was truly a unicorn. I mean, you kind of know it, you talk about it, but you let yourself get like sucked in to just like the normalcy of what he was doing, which is completely not normal and will likely not be seen again for decades to come, right? Like he was a generational head coach. And but Mike was very, very harsh. It's not even just like, oh, this sucks. They suck. Like, you know, it happens, right? I felt terrible about the Lions losing week one against the Packers. It was like, I'm done with this team. Like, I'm done with this program. Like, until DeBoer is gone, I don't even care. And even when he comes back, or whoever comes in, I'm still probably not going to care. It was like
credit
about as extreme as you can get on one side of it.
credit to them. They have shown a lot of heart over the past
He's
couple
lost
weeks.
faith. Don't
They
lose
they
faith.
they have shown a lot of heart and guts that I didn't know they had. Uh, and I do want to reserve any apology and any getting of my hopes up until
Sure.
they play
That's fine.
Vanderbilt
Okay.
because as crazy as it is to say, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but like, really I want to see them do it against Vanderbilt because it is I even what, I even want to hold off and see them do it against like I want to wait till October's over because by the end of October they'll have played
The third
Tennessee.
week specifically.
Yes, the third week, but then also the fourth week because then you play South Carolina.
Eh.
And yeah, South Carolina's coming to Tuscaloosa, but like just because it's easy to get for Georgia, it's easy to get for Tennessee. Get up, it's easy even to get for Vanderbilt this year, given what happened last year.
Yeah.
Do it against the teams that like you should beat too. Beat bad teams badly. Vanderbilt's not a bad team. Vanderbilt's 16 in the nation, right? Like they're ranked, they're good, but like beat the teams that you should beat. And then we'll talk about it. So, because
Okay.
I tell you what, if they win out in October, then whatever happens from there happens, right? Because then you got Auburn in November, but like that's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. If they make it to the SEC championship or the playoffs, like from there, it's like, whatever happens, happens. Like there's a lot of good teams that they'll be playing against at that point if they are lucky enough to get there, if they, do what's necessary. But yeah, that's great Georgia win. Great win against Georgia. But I want to see a little bit more before I issue a formal apology.
It's fine. I just need to hear you say, you know, I lost faith.
Oh,
But
absolutely. I still don't
I am
have it
I am
back
back.
yet. I still don't have it back yet.
I am back because guess what? If anyone told you who the national champion was going to be today, they're lying to you. Because
That's
there's nothing. We don't know what the hell the SEC is because all these powerhouses aren't powerhouses. The Big Ten, it's not like, you know, Penn State hasn't been great. Oregon's looked good, but it's against each other, right? Ohio State's done what they've needed to do so far. But there isn't that team. The Big 12's plucky, but until you see them play one of these other two conferences, like you don't know.
yeah.
There's
But
some very fun teams, which is going to make for
yeah,
an incredible playoff, I believe.
I
But
guess that's the only
yeah,
thing I'd say about this Saturday. It seemed like it was awesome, like
yeah,
across the board. A
yeah.
lot of really, really good games. So, congrats to everyone that got to watch it. I wouldn't know because Penn State has just is the Middle Ages. It's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
fucking 90s
Yeah.
there,
Just teasing you. Because the thing was too, sorry listeners, before we get to the our segment here, which is, you know, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna want to strap in because it's gonna be a great one, but we have plenty to talk about. The last thing about that is it's not, which I did get some SOS on my phone, which was like, well, what the hell's going on here? But the majority of the time it was like, hey, you have 5G, you have 3 bars, of course you do. It's like, no, I don't. I
No,
can't even like I can't even get
can't
like Safari
break
on right
through.
now.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah,
I can't even like use any of my apps, not
yeah.
just trying to stream something. I get it. That's a lot of bandwidth. Multiply that by how many, because every tailgate tried to do it, which was kind of back to your point. Sorry, I was going to mention this, but I forgot to, was it wasn't just that the tailgating scene was great, and truthfully I haven't been to too many collegiate tailgates, so I bet you there are a lot that were like this, and we were in the premium lot, so it was to be expected to have like just tailgate after tailgate, RV after RV. It just looked awesome, but everyone was trying to stream games,
Yeah.
and it sucked because some people got to stream for longer than others, and we got to stream for maybe a minute at a time.
I have searched how to purchase my own Starlink and get that set up for the future because I never
Yeah.
again will I let that happen. So
Okay. Beyond bragging rights. So we had
yes,
talked about this before, but just to kind of reiterate what to expect. And so it's kind of what we would say. It's the idea is there are some very intense rivalries that currently are just being played for bragging rights. And one of the things that obviously we love and talk about are the trophies that go with the other rivalries that have them. So we thought, okay, why don't we take a look at these awesome rivalries that don't have trophies and see if we can drum up an idea that would get both fan bases excited because especially in these intense rivalries, like it's just another thing to hold over the other team's head when you win it. So I will say this, we are not going to force things. A great example was the Oregon Penn State. We really thought long and hard about what something could look like. We had an idea initially to go to the tailgate with maybe even a prototype if we came up with a great idea. But we quickly realized that it's not worth forcing. Not to say that we won't ever come up with one for some of these
well we
newer
came up with it
rivalries.
on the ride to Penn
We
State.
did. We came up with a good idea, but
Turns out,
we need
yeah,
the rivalry to get to a point. We
yes,
need the fans to want something like that.
yeah.
Um, but we aren't going to force this. So we do have, and we've thought about this for years in some cases. Like this one today is something that we, at least the majority of the idea. Maybe not the finer details, but the broader idea we've kind of had in our pocket for maybe a couple of years now.
Mhm.
And there are a few other ones that are the same. But yeah, this segment is going to be us talking about breaking down and just letting you guys know. Obviously, if you are an alum or a fan of these schools, you're likely going to know a lot of this. So the lead up to the trophy idea is going to be redundant, but for we want to just let everyone else know about these rivalries that aren't involved, that don't know how intense they are, and then hopefully come up with an idea that people love. And if you've listened to us now for 5 years, trophies just get made because someone comes up with a cool idea and gets enough excitement and honestly just like follows through. And so that's our goal here. Our goal is to try and bring even more life to these already intense rivalries. And we really are hoping that if you guys do like these ideas, one, give us feedback. If we are awful on these, let us know. If we're missing the mark or you have some like tweaks, ideas, let us know. But we're hoping that if we do come up with an idea that you guys like, help us get these across the finish line, right? Because college football, as it's losing a lot of its charm with losing the regionality, I don't know if that's a word,
Yeah, no, you're right. Regionality. Yep.
of these rivalries, and the you have Boston College and Cal in the same conference, as we're losing that and it's only going to get worse. uh we want to bring a little bit more back, right? Like college football has its traditions and rivalry trophies are part of that, and so we really are trying to, as we're losing some of it, we're trying to interject some more. So please, if you can help us out and help us spread some of these ideas that are good. Of course, if they're crappy, feel free to tell us. But we like to think that the ones that we are going to present to you are ones that we've thought through and feel like are on the right track, if not in a good spot.
So all of our
Is there anything I've
boosters,
missed?
all of our alumni club members, leaders, all of our NIL collective members that are listening out there, if you have some funds to throw around, like as we talked about in our last episode, please, let us know. Feel free to invest a couple shekels in making a nice trophy like this.
Yeah, and I will just say, kind of again, I will pat our podcast back in this case, and it's like, hey, I don't know there's too many people across the country that have broken down and analyzed, uh, 5 years worth of rivalry trophies. So we've really
I think it's
have.
us and Reese Davis at this point. Like that's about it. So.
So I want to believe we have a pretty good pulse on things that have worked in the past, things that haven't worked in the past, things that have gotten fans excited, things that have gotten us excited. And so I want to believe we are going to, have some pretty quality ideas for some of these.
Mhm.
So why don't we start with this first one?
Let's do it.
The Cascade Clash, which is a game played between the University of Oregon and the University of Washington. And so I know for a lot of people, that's a rivalry that most people really didn't know about until a couple years ago when you had the last year of the Pac-12. You had some both schools were highly ranked, had two matchups that were highly contested. We'll talk about those in a little bit. That really game day went out to Seattle, so I think that also helped spotlight this rivalry as well, because obviously for you guys in the Pacific Northwest, like this is a really rich, heated rivalry that, honestly, us East Coasters just don't, you know, never really thought about, never really
Yeah.
truthfully cared about. And yeah, so we're really excited to shine some light on how great this rivalry is, and then hopefully come up with this great idea. So Mike, again, listeners, this is something we're just kind of we've put some thought into it, but this is the first time we're going through this, so some of this information hopefully will be helpful. We'll see how it goes. And honestly, thought the first thing, this isn't small schools; these aren't always going to be small schools, so I don't want to call it a small school spotlight, but I thought it would be worth us talking through some unique traits and that of each university like we have in the past, and also some game day traditions before diving into the rivalry itself, which has some really, really rich history, which is fun. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll start with Oregon. So Oregon, especially if you've seen game day ever at Autzen, they usually have a B roll shot of the stadium, and one of the things that they always spotlight is the Franmeyer. Excuse me if I've sent this wrong, but the Franmeyer footbridge. So they have that kind of like pedestrian bridge that goes over I believe it's the Willamette River, to get fans to the stadium. I
Willamette. Willamette.
Willamette? Willamette? Okay.
Willamette. Yeah.
Willamette. See,
Scott told me, he's like, you gotta get that right. So
okay.
Willamette.
Willamette. Sorry.
Yes.
There you go. Willamette. Just like Pavia. We're learning.
Yeah,
Please.
there we go.
If we are saying things wrong, I can understand that it's like killing people anytime you hear anyone say something, mispronounce something. But okay. So that's what this bridge is. It's pretty iconic. You can scroll down, Mike, and it might be familiar to you to see that
Yes.
picture. But the access to this Autzen Stadium from the campus was greatly enhanced, obviously because it had that river. In 1970, when this footbridge was created, it was designed by Obeck Consulting Engineers, and it first opened on October 17th, and that was a game against the University of Idaho. And initially, the access to the bridge was only coincided with Autzen Stadium games, like events at Autzen Stadium, because users had to cross the train tracks owned by the Southern Pacific Company. But in 1972, the railroad underpass was created to facilitate full-time access to the bridge for pedestrians and cyclists. So now it's kind of been known as the Autzen Footbridge, renamed by the city of Eugene in September 2009. It was known as that. It was renamed in 2009 to honor the Oregon president Dave Frohnmeyer and his wife. Another little fun fact about Autzen, and if you've been there, it makes total sense, is it has like a crater setting, and it was originally built in like a quarry like depression. So they kind of like built it into the ground. So in 1959, Oregon, the university participated with the city, county, and utility company in the purchase of the 560 acres where the stadium is currently at. They got that from the State Highway Commission. So the plans for this new stadium commenced, and a successfully fund drove the money to be able to build this. And the firm SOM explored Hayward Field as a site option, but selected. So Hayward Field, we'll talk about in a second. It's also very famous, but they had selected this new site for this new stadium, and it cost approximately $3 million, only taking 9 months to build, and was like I
9 months.
mentioned, yeah.
Wow.
Well, if you've been there, I think I mentioned this probably after I had my trip. I'm so torn on what I feel about the stadium, right? So I love how it's built, but it is something where it definitely feels old at times,
Hmm.
which can have charm. But even something like Lambeau Field, you can have historic things, Wrigley Field, that have modern day updates. And I feel like it probably is due for some updates, especially considering that, who they have as a benefactor and how the, university in general has benefited from that. I'm shocked that Autzen has not. And when you go
I'm just
there,
I'm just saying nine
yeah,
months. Like this is America, baby. We don't build anything in 9 months. Like
well,
you gotta spend 9 months getting permits pulled, So that's pretty impressive.
the stadium was originally um, 41,000 capacity and was named for the Autzen Foundation, which was headed by the Oregon alum Thomas Autzen, who contributed to the project. And then in 1967, a $90 million expansion. So just thinking about that. So it's $3 million to create, and then $90 million to expand. Increased the capacity from 41,000 to 58,000, which is what it sits at today. And the renovations included seating, skyboxes, just improved accessibility, which shocks me because I don't know what the hell it looked like before then. Because yeah, like I said, it's just old. It has like, if you're walking around, it's just one bowl. If you're walking around the concourse, it's just one kind of, it's like a high school concourse in the sense where it's just like a slab. It's very hilly. It's not even like flat with entrances. Like you're going up to get to this part, then you're going down to get to this part. So I don't know. I just feel like the concession stands were a bit of a mess. I just feel like there's just minor things without taking away the charm of it. I
Yeah.
think there's some things that can be done, but the next one is Hayward Field. So you can scroll down or you can see a picture of that. It is it's probably arguably the most famous landmark on the campus. It's a world-class track and field stadium. It was rebuilt in 2020 with soaring wood and glass architecture and the 10-story tower shaped like a running shoe heel. And this is, as I think I talked about this before in one of our trophies, but it is considered, oh my gosh, what? I can't believe I forgot the nickname of it. It is known for track and field, obviously with Nike, and this is where all of the Olympians, track and field runners usually train out here. And the nickname is something town.
This is first class. I will say, like, it looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely incredible. It reminds me a little bit of the concept for the stadium for the
Tracktown.
Vegas A's, Tracktown.
Tracktown USA is what it's known because
Yeah,
of
I
that.
buy it. I'm buying what they're selling on that.
And then the last thing that I talked about it before, we'll talk about how this relates to a game day tradition. But Mike, you had known as well that Animal House, the movie Animal House, was filmed, had some sites on campus that they filmed at, so that's pretty famous as well. And like I had mentioned, and I will talk about in a little bit, um, it has a pretty cool game day tradition that comes with that.
Yeah.
Now into Washington, one of the most famous landmarks on Washington's campus, which is one of many, is the Sazalo Library, and specifically the graduate reading room. What does that look like? Because there is one thing you don't even have to say, you don't even have to describe what this looks like if you just tell me, well, specifically the bits and pieces of what it looks like, because there is one easy comparison to this that people will instantly understand.
I'm gonna say Hogwarts.
It is. It
Yeah.
looks like the Great Hall of Hogwarts, which is pretty awesome.
Can I scroll down?
Yes. Oh, did you? Sorry, did you
No,
not?
no, no. I didn't
Oh,
scroll down. Yeah, yeah. It's Hogwarts.
yeah.
That's why I just when you say the senior reading room or whatever or
Yeah. Okay.
graduate reading room, I'm
It's
like, yeah,
Hogwarts.
that's fucking Hogwarts. So yeah, I mean, it's like it's like the Great Wall Hall. It's like the Great Hall in Hogwarts meets like a cathedral. Like it's beautiful. Like all these beautiful. This has definitely been in movies. Like 1,000% this has been in movies. But it's like I don't know which movies. But I mean it's got the steeple ceiling like a church would, right? And then it has a bunch of like very tall stained glass,
Mm.
like super tall. Tall stained glass with the steeple roof and then these like big lanterns coming down, which is actually what I would like to put one of these lights in my basement over the poker table, bumper pool table. And then all of these wooden desks, wooden chairs, and just rows and rows of books. Beautiful. Beautiful.
The next landmark that's very famous and honestly just looks really awesome is the Drumheller Fountain and the Rainier Vista. So this is kind of the centerpiece of campus, and it's framed to Mount Rainier, and it dates all the way back to 1909 for the Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition. So imagine that is very similar to like the World Fair that happened in Chicago, way back when as well. But if you scroll down, you can see that like initial drawing of it back
Oh yeah.
then. And then you can see how a modern day picture and how it lines up.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly how they drew it up. That poster's really cool. That like
Yeah.
initial drawing. That's beautiful.
So this fountain kind of reminds me of like the fountain in Chicago, right? If you guys
Yeah.
have ever been to Chicago or maybe seen like the Oprah Winfrey show, and now it has a shot of the fountain in the opening credits for it. But imagine that with Mount Rainier in the background,
Yeah, just
evergreen trees and Mount
a
Rainier.
beautiful white cap mountain. Like, and this picture's really cool because you got the fountain with the water cresting at the top, and
Yep.
then the white cap of Mount Rainier right behind it.
Yeah, very, very beautiful scenic. I've been to Seattle before, only to the city, and then I've been to the Olympic National Forest to the west of town. So I've never the university's north of downtown, so I'd never been quite far enough up there. But I don't know. I don't know why I always just assumed that the University of Seattle wouldn't be, or University of Seattle, the University of Washington in Seattle. I don't know why I just never like thought it would be a pretty campus, even though I've been out to that area and it's gorgeous. But yeah, this kind of after doing research on this, it definitely has this renowned like sense of I kind of want to go to campus just to kind of see all this because it looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, so why don't we go? So those are kind of landmarks. Why don't we transition to a bit of game day traditions for both schools? So tailgating at Oregon, there is one tailgate that is pretty famous, and it's tailgating at the Mo, which is the Moshovsky Center, which is an indoor mega tailgate uh, at the Mashofsky Center next to Autzen, which seems pretty cool. And how I'm going to do this is I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, kind of go to Oregon, then go to Washington on very similar things. So for tailgating, that's one of the big, most famous ones at Oregon. With Washington, you guys may well know. If not, Washington's very famous for their sailgating on Lake Washington because the university and the stadium itself is right off the water, which is very cool. Seems like also a bucket list thing to do, even
Yeah.
though I get
Yeah.
seasick. I think I can figure out a way to
I
take
think you'll
enough
be all right.
motion
Yeah.
motion sickness medicine. But sailgating is very famous at Husky Stadium. The team entrances. So the Duck is known for riding out on a Harley to lead the team out, which was pretty cool to see in person as well. At the University of Washington, they run out to a World War II air raid siren,
Oh,
which is pretty
nice.
cool. Yeah, which is definitely different. Um, this one we will talk about later. I remember seeing this in person and smiling, not because it mattered anything to me, but I just thought it was interesting that they even played this in a game that didn't have to do with these two schools. But at Oregon, they have a pre kick hype up video, right? Duck Vision reels, and it always ends with what's called the pick, which is a very famous game winning interception with from a freshman cornerback, Kenny Wheaton, against Washington. And it's the last thing Oregon fans see before any game, which is hilarious. And it just gets the people going. Which I thought was awesome. It's made me smile because again, playing Michigan State. It's one thing to play it against, have that clip in against Washington, but just to like have that in against any opponent,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of speaks to the rivalry, and we'll give a bit more details on that play later. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. Obviously, the hand signs, right? You got throwing the O's for Oregon, right? Pretty famous. Washington also has a W hand sign, not surprising, right? And they call it their bow down chant. Um, One of the in between quarters. So this was where the Anim House comes in. So something I didn't realize until I did a bit of research before going out there was there's some very famous end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter traditions across college football. Some better than others. You have jump around at Wisconsin. You have Mr. Brightside at Michigan, and then at Oregon they do shout, which is made famous from Animal House. So that was pretty fun to be a part of that as well. And the scores. So after scoring, so Washington really doesn't have anything like that between quarters. Their pregame, they don't really have anything like unique as far as just being able to see the panoramic views of where the stadium's at, which is enough. But after scores, the Duck does the push-ups, which is always fun to watch, especially in some of these better offenses. To watch that Duck, easily break
Crank
100
them out.
push-ups,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just cranking push-ups the entire game. And then for Washington, they also do their air raid siren that they will run into. They do that after touchdowns as well.
Nice.
The final thing, which kind of leads into this next, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. So for Oregon, their Autzen Stadium is known for being their acoustics. So even though they are small, right, it's very surprising because again, I don't think people realize how regional that program was. This is myself included. How regional it was until Phil Knight decided to dump a bunch of money into it, right?
Right.
So it was
Right.
very regional. So that's why Autzen is very small, but it is loud, and I can attest to that on a Friday night against a 20 and a half point underdog. I had to stand the entire game and it was pretty consistently loud. It was never loud like the whiteout, but I think a part of that was because there was never a moment that they had to be loud against
Hmm.
Michigan State
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
that game. So it is very well known that their stadium quirk there, it's known for being very loud for it only holding 58,000, which
Hmm.
is crazy to think about. Like that's half of what was in Beaver Stadium
Yeah.
this weekend. And
Yeah.
really kind of makes me want to go to the game against them in 2 years to be able to compare that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of like how I remember again, a non-competitive game, it was way louder than I thought it was going to be. I can only imagine in a important game.
Oh yeah.
Now
I
the
mean, even Ohio State last year, it was.
yeah.
Like, I remember that game vividly. They were rocking that place the entire time.
So one thing that shocked me, so if we want to talk about to wrap up this game day tradition thing for Washington, was this was the original site that popularized the wave.
Really?
Yes. So let me tell you more. This is according to historylink.org. On October 31st, Halloween, 1981, the wave, a staple, obviously, of fan participation across all U.S. sports, even if it's annoying, made its unofficial debut at the University of Washington back in 1981. So just to remind people, the wave is when people stand up in how do you say that? Like
Sections,
in sections
Yeah.
as it goes across the stadium to mimic a wave, like an ocean wave, right? And this is hotly contested because and debated. In 2013, there was a report that said that the first video evidence of a wave was actually captured in Oakland at a athletics game 2 weeks before Husky Stadium.
Well, that would make sense because you could go to Oakland, so that's not a far trek to make, right? It stands to reason that someone could be in an Oakland A's game and 2 weeks later be at a Washington Huskies game. But still, for that to catch on, I guess you could even assume that people, Washington Huskies fans, may have been watching Oakland at the time. But
Could have been.
yeah,
Well,
huh?
here's where they kind of come together. This is where it comes together. So initially, in 1981, Rob Weller, a Tacoma native, enrolled at the University of Washington. He was something of a local celebrity as his role as like a yell leader, commanding the school's student section, which
God,
obviously makes sense. And he had a microphone in his hand, and he'd entertain his classmates and whatnot during the games with some NBC chants, whatever it is. Just like he was kind of really the rabble rouser, getting the student section to get going during games. He was probably best known for his attitude checks. So he'd cue the different parts of the student section with color coded cards to stand, shout, and sit in unison in spurts, not in waves of an enthusiasm. So when he graduated in 1972 and was working in television industry, he was invited back to the school to be a guest yell leader in the 1981 game between the Huskies and Stanford, which had an opponent or a student, a quarterback at the time, which was a Port Angeles, which I've actually stayed at. That's where I stayed at to go whale watching. It's just right across the Puget Sound over on the peninsula. John Elway.
huh?
This was a game against John Elway at Stanford. It was Halloween. It was homecoming. A crowd of 53,000 turned up to Husky Stadium, and Weller revived the attitude check twice, and both times the Huskies responded with a touchdown. So when the band director, Bill Bissell, urged him to prompt the vertical cheer a third time, Weller thought it might be overdoing it. So going side to side then is what the band director suggested, and Weller decided to do it. So he ran from the end zone to the 50-yard line and watched the student section do the wave. And to his surprise, the student it didn't stop just at the student section with the undergrads. It picked up cadence and went all the way around the stadium. and that was how it was remembered as the Waves Seattle Rise is what it was. Remembering the Waves Seattle Rise is what it was considered. Um, so that's their side of the story that happened. Now, Crazy George in Oakland has something to say about this. Okay, so 16 days before that, Crazy George Henderson, a professional cheerleader at Oakland A's games, organized and led a version of the wave during Game 3 of the American League Championship against the Yankees. So Henderson's wave at Oakland Coliseum was seen on national TV, and he said he had been perfecting the new cheer for about a decade since he was a cheerleader at San Jose State University in the early 1970s. And during that same time, obviously, Weller was doing his attitude checks. And this is what ESPN.com's Doug Williams wrote. He said, just as Crazy George's idea evolved leading up to the 1981 wave, so had Washington's. Even with that, though, Crazy George comes out the chronological winner in the documented wave division. However, the wave's biggest springboard proved to be the University of Washington. So after the game with Stanford, the wave became a staple at Huskies games and was taken back to campuses across the country by visiting cheerleaders. At the same time, other Seattle teams, notably the Seahawks and the Sounders, adopted it as well. And after Michigan played at Washington in 1983, Wolverines fans fell in love with the wave. And at Michigan, they developed all sorts of twists, including slow motion, reverse waves, and silent waves.
You
So
you don't see much of the wave anymore.
it still pops up. I've been to sporting events where it still pops up. I think
Yeah.
people get annoyed with it. I think it's become an annoyance more than
I gotta
anything.
sit up and get back
Right.
down.
Right. Sit
Yeah.
down. We're
Yeah.
losing. Sit down. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
timing of it is also important, but it's a good, fun thing. Kids love it. It kind of gets it's more. It makes it just interesting. It breaks up just sitting and watching.
Mhm.
But here's where it really ties together is Henderson didn't have a name for his creation, but nor did Weller at the time. But the Seattle Times later dubbed it Weller's Wave, and Henderson was adamant that he invented it. But he was able to kind of give credit for naming it the wave. And as we kind of said, it was Washington that really made it a staple of games and then spread it across the country. So if you hate the wave, blame the Huskies.
And Crazy George.
Yes. So I thought it was kind of cool. I never thought it's not something I ever thought about was the origin of the wave.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also hilarious that Crazy George thought about it for years and years and
Decades. Spent a decade perfecting it.
perfecting
Getting
it.
people to sit up and stand up and sit back down.
Okay, boy. Now on to the rivalry. I told you guys this was a long one. We were on to the rivalry. Now this is the why. This is the I gave you guys a little bit of a preview of Oregon and Washington. Now it's the why behind why they need a trophy, right? This is the rivalry. So the first matchup was in 1900. Oregon won it 43-0. And in the first 20 games of the rivalry, it was actually pretty even. Oregon won 8 of them, Washington won 9, and there were 3 ties. So pretty even. It
Yeah.
was it is one of the 25 most played rivalries in NCAA history and has been played regularly since 1900. Um, but since 1922, they've met every year except wartime, 2001, and COVID. And in those 2 year, and then there's have been 2 years, 1945 and 2023, which we'll talk about later, and you guys will obviously likely remember. The game was played twice in the same year, and
That's
both,
surprising that there's only 45 in 2023 is the two times it was played twice.
yeah, and
Huh.
both times Washington won both matchups.
Huh. That's interesting.
Overall, Washington leads the series, 69 wins to 49 losses to 5 ties. So a bit surprising to me as well that
Yeah.
Washington has really had a stronghold on it, and it wasn't, if not for a bit of a streak that we would talk about in a little bit, it would be a very dominant series for Washington. So why don't we start in 1909?
Why don't we
What
go
if
the
I
whole way back?
what if I told you that this trophy or this rivalry did have a trophy
I would
home?
believe it. I would absolutely buy it.
So in 1909, the teams met in Seattle on Thanksgiving Day for the final game of the series, with both teams undefeated in the Northwest Conference League play. The game decided the Northwest Championship and ownership of a Tiffany and Co. Silver Loving Cup, which was awarded by John Barrett, who was a former diplomat for President Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, all right.
Washington won the Northwest Championship game 20-6, largely due to their use of the still new forward pass, while Oregon preferred to play an older style of football. Why don't you scroll down just a smidge and tell me what that trophy looks like? Don't go past that.
Oh man. That's a nice silver Tiffany. So it's
Hmm.
silver, right? Yeah,
Yep.
it's a black and white photo as well. So but it's a silver um it's the Tri-Wizard Cup. I mean, it's like a
So
urn.
Loving Cup is an actual like style. Had
Okay.
no idea. So if you guys Google it, but you should describe it still, but it is technically a Loving Cup is a style.
Okay, great. So it's a loving cup. Everyone knows what that is, right? But
Right,
just
right.
for the sake of completionism, it's like an hourglass shape, with a rounded bottom and then open at the top as a cup is. And then it has three handles. They're rather ornate curved handles going from like the top of the cup down to the bottom. And then there's some writing there that says Intercollegiate Football Championship Pacific Northwest presented by John Barrett. May the best team win. 1908. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
No idea where it went.
Yeah.
No idea what came of it after that one thing. Obviously, this was like the point of it was the Northwest Championship, so it wasn't necessarily specifically
For Oregon and Washington, right?
yes, but still, I feel like that probably, I assume it could have gone on. The Northwest Conference still exists today. I don't know if it exists. I didn't do enough research to know if it exists in its entirety like it did back then, but they do not play for that no longer. John Barrett does not present that.
Imagine not.
I hope that he just got to keep that, like after it happened. I hope he was just able to take that home and hang his hat on that. But
Yeah.
all right, now we go to 1948. This is when the rivalry gets a little bit of a little bit of ambers kind of pushed around, a little fire stoked. So this is where it became heated from an Oregon's perspective. So in 1948, when Oregon and Cal both were undefeated in the Pacific Coast Conference, California was undefeated overall. Oregon's only loss was at undefeated Michigan, which ended up being that year's national champion. The Ducks had 7 victories in the PCC to Cal's 6. The winner of the PCC, as was the case for most of the Pac-12's history, was get to play in the Rose Bowl. So Oregon was led by Norm Van Brocklin, quarterback, and halfback John McKay. And they opted for the playoff game, but California declined. So the tiebreaker format for the PCC was elected to use, or the format that they chose at that point was that the championship team that would go to the Rose Bowl would be selected by the other schools in the conference. Okay. So they just decided that Cal didn't want to play that game, which I guess kind of makes sense. Like you have more to lose, especially if you're undefeated overall at that point, could play for a national championship. So they opted to do the everyone votes. So the PCC at that point had 10 member schools, six of them in the Northwest, including Idaho and Montana, and four of them in California. So it was assumed that Oregon would be the team playing in the Rose Bowl because even a 5-5 tie would be in their favor because they had more PCC wins that year.
Mhm.
But California was voted champion because Washington had persuaded Montana to vote for California, something that Oregon fans did not forget.
Very interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can't say I would forget or forgive that.
So the PCC allowed a second bowl team that season to go to a bowl, and Oregon went to the 1949 Cotton Bowl Classic, but lost to SMU 21-13. And California ended up losing to Northwestern 20-14 in the Rose Bowl. So suck it, Cal. Then we go into 1962. There was a bit of a fan incident. So you think this rivalry is probably, only about players that are playing on the field, right? There,
One
there
would
would
think.
never be fan involvement.
Hardly ever.
Well, in 1962, Larry Hill
Oh,
of
my cousin.
Oregon was tackled by Washington fans who had rushed the field at Husky Stadium while he was trying to catch the tie-breaking touchdown of the game or the game winning, I guess, the game winning touchdown of the game on the final play. So Oregon had been down 7, drove all the way down the field and scored to tie the game with 2 minutes, then got the ball back from Washington with 40 seconds left and had a big end around that got them to about the 50-yard line. And the quarterback heaved it into the end zone. And fans that were on the cusp of the stadium did a band, right? It was a
Yeah.
Cal Stanford band thing,
Yeah.
but intentionally, and basically stopped him from being able to catch
Holy
the ball.
smokes.
And it was just Gucci. Game over, tie game.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 1962,
Preston
they were
call
just like,
anything.
listen, there was like thousands and thousands of people in the field at that point, and they were just kind of like, bye.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I would be so heated.
Yeah. Now we just
Oh,
saw a player get like trampled at
yeah.
UVA. Now
Yeah.
imagine if there was just like 10 of them that went up and like, got the deflected,
They didn't really wait
pass.
for any flags or anything like that either. They just ran out. So yeah, I mean, gosh, imagine if there was a flag on that play, they'd have to
Yeah.
call it back. Oh my goodness.
I think the ref probably would have just been like, we get paid $10 for this. I think it's
Yeah.
time to go to the bar.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, so then you get to the 70s and 80s. So from 1974 through 1986, the Huskies won 12 out of 13 games from the Ducks. So that was a bit of a rough stretch for the
Yeah.
Ducks there and a great one for the Huskies. And then you had 1995. You had coach Jim Lambright with his War of Words, which again kind of stoked that fire again for the Ducks. So in 1995, Washington's head coach Jim Lambright unsuccessfully lobbied for the Huskies to be selected to the Cotton Bowl instead of the Ducks after losing to them earlier in the year. And the Seattle Post columnist Bud Withers wrote that Lambright's actions invited at least another half century worth of bile from Oregon's
I
fans.
believe it. Yeah.
So let me read what he said from the article from the Eugene Register Guard. So let me pull this up real quick. This is what he said. So the Oregon coach Mike Bellotti said, "I think it would be an injustice and a travesty if we finish 9-2 and don't go to the Cotton Bowl." And he said, "We deserve to go, no question about it, but that's about as much as I want to say about it." So this was kind of like leading into the last game of the year. Washington had already lost to Oregon this year, but at that point you had an 8-2 Ducks and a 6-3-1 Washington team that were trying to get to a Cotton Bowl at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after that, Jim Lambright showed up at his new news conference that Monday. Didn't even mention the game against Washington State. Sorry. This kind of also just leads to the fact that while there is an Apple Cup and there is a civil war, uh, what we have learned is that Ducks and Huskies hate each other way more than they hate the Cougars
Yeah.
and way more than they hate the Beavers.
Yeah.
So wasn't even talking about the game at hand. He was armed with a sheet of statistics, which he claims points out that Washington, who I mentioned was 6-3-1, should be an easy choice over the Ducks at 8-2, even if they both won their final games.
Holy smokes!
So this is what he said. He said, "We can't let Oregon sell themselves to the Cotton Bowl just because they're 9-2. We're the most exciting team in the Pac-10. We've played Ohio State and Notre Dame while they've played Pacific and Utah. We've been on the ABC TV 4 times despite NCAA sanctions, and they've been on only twice. And we have 74,000 at our games to 43,000 at their games. If Oregon is going to throw out its 9-2 record, it's very easy for me to take a look at all that and show it to a bowl committee, and they can put that 9-2 record where it belongs." Yeah.
Oh boy.
So Oregon, what they did was won 4 of 6 over Lambright in the 1990s. But his replacement also gave another boost to the rivalry because his replacement was Colorado head coach at the time, Rick Neuheisel. And he moved there in 1999. But Oregon had already had a little bit of history with Neuheisel while he was at Colorado. At the 1996 Cotton Bowl game, which was played between the number 12 Oregon and the number 7 Colorado, Neuheisel called for a fake punt while the Buffaloes led 32-6 with less than 5 minutes left.
Oh boy. Salt in the wound.
Yeah.
Right guy for
Signetti.
Yeah. Yeah.
Signetti style. Which then there were rumors. So that happened then. Then there's rumors that Oregon's head coach, Mike Bellotti, was accused of turning Neuheisel in for recruiting violations during a dead period at that time as well. So you got a little snitch in there. And then the rivalry grew even more when Neuheisel celebrated by taking photos and jumping up and down on the O in the middle of the field after a win at Autzen in 2002.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. And then just kind of I think what led to that was 2 years earlier, the Ducks' victory in 2000 in Eugene spoiled an otherwise undefeated season for the Huskies. But they ended up going to the Rose Bowl and winning it and finishing third in the nation that year. So a little bit of rivalry between Neuheisel and Oregon.
Consistent dumping of gasoline on the fire here.
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me drop this. Now we get to talk about some iconic games. So the pick. So this is what I talked. This is the famous clip that gets shown pregame for every game here. So why don't I describe it first and then you can watch it. So the pick, which is arguably the most iconic moment in the history of the rivalry for Ducks fans, happened in 1994 when Oregon freshman cornerback Kenny Wheaton intercepted Washington's quarterback Damon Howard. Howard? I've read it, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Heward? Huard?
Yeah.
Okay, Heward. And he returned the ball 97 yards for a touchdown with under a minute to play to seal a 31-20 upset win that snapped a 5-game losing streak in the series for the Ducks and set them on a course for what would become their first conference championship and trip to the Rose Bowl since 1957. This play, coined the pick, is widely credited as the turning point for the Oregon football program on the way to becoming nationally relevant in the decades that followed. It also swung momentum in the rivalry that was, until that time, mostly dominated by the Huskies. So at that point, the Huskies had won 54 games and only lost 28. So then Oregon notched a 17-4 record against Washington from the pick up until the end of the streak, which we'll talk about next.
Okay.
So why don't you click that and start it at 51 seconds? So it's highlights of that entire game, but the pick itself started around the 51-second mark.
All right, be right back.
and just for the listeners here, um, just in case for copyright reasons, he is watching the video right now, having some great facial expressions, but on mute because we don't want to get in trouble. His great smile says everything, and I'm gonna try to upload this as a video even on Spotify because obviously you're gonna want to see our idea of what the trophy could look like, but we'll also post it on social. Uh, it
Kenny
was
Wheaton is going to score. Kenny Wheaton is going to score. Wow, what a highlight. He undercut the ball really nicely, too.
yeah,
That was great.
freshman,
Yeah,
freshman.
that was great.
Yeah, so if you ever go to an Oregon game, you're going to see that exact, 10-second clip there
Kenny
at the end
Wheaton's
of
going to
their hypo
score.
video.
Yeah, I watched it 3 times. So, yeah, I had to keep going back.
So I had mentioned the streak. So Oregon beat Washington in 12 straight years from 2004 to 2015, which is the largest winning streak in this rivalry. And this also correlated with Oregon's most successful era of football and Washington's least successful. So over that span, the Ducks won 120 and 36 over those 12 seasons with 2 national championship game appearances, 4 conference titles, 4 Rose Bowl victories, and a Heisman Trophy winner, while the Huskies went 62 and 88, including a winless 0-12 season in 2008. Then you have the point, and you can scroll down to see the point. So the Huskies finally snapped the losing streak in 2016 with a dominating 70-21 win over the Ducks in Eugene. This was the first time an opponent had scored 70 points in Autzen history, and the first time an Oregon team had allowed 70 points or more in a game since a 71-7 loss to the Longhorns in 1941. So the Huskies would go on to finish the regular season 12-1, won the Pac-12 championship, faced Alabama in the Peach Bowl, the college football
And that was
playoff
all she wrote.
semifinal.
That was all she wrote for the Huskies.
Yeah, that was a bad time.
For the
And then
Huskies, not for me.
Yeah,
That was pretty good time. I had a lot of fun.
Oregon would go on to finish the season 4-8, resulting in Mark Helfrich being fired at the end of the season. But on the game's first play from scrimmage, the Ducks quarterback at the time, Justin Herbert, making his first collegiate start, was intercepted by Huskies cornerback Buda Baker. So some two big names there. 4 plays later, quarterback Jake Browning scored the first of the Huskies' 10 touchdowns on a 1-yard run. And as he crossed the goal line, Browning pointed his left index finger at the trailing linebacker, Jimmy Swain, who was in the throwback uniforms as well, blue and yellow, which was the Oregon Webfoots jerseys, was what their nickname was before the Ducks.
Burn those jerseys.
So this gesture became known as the point. And after sideline photographs of the play went viral on social media during and after the game. So yeah, the point. It kind of reminds me of like not as dramatic because this one's cooler because he's like I don't know. It's so funny to describe because when I think of a point, I think of like remember the Titans and like Gary Bertier pointing across the
Yeah.
field to the opponent. I can't remember what that coach Ed something in the semifinal game, and he's pointing at him because that dude was the racist one that was handing out bananas and stuff. But this point was very much like
It's like a little like half heart, like he's got his arm still tucked in. He's like, please don't rip my hand off. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. It was
yeah,
like if I extend my arm, you could probably grab it, but
yeah,
you can't catch me.
yeah.
But still a pretty iconic
It was like a
photo
boop,
for
like a little
rivalry.
like boop, you know,
Oh, that's cute.
boop.
And then we go into 2 other things here. So the first ever top 10 matchup was in 2023 when number 7 Washington, this was the game day, traveled to, did they traveled to?
Yeah, they were
They were
there.
in
They're
Autzen,
in,
right?
yeah. No, it was at Washington.
It's at Washington. That's right. Okay. Oregon was number 8 at the time. It was the first time the two have ever played each other when they were both in the top 10. Washington defeated Oregon in a 36-33 game, which immediately became one of the greatest games in the history of the rivalry. And then just kind of a reminder of that game, despite having stopped two red zone fourth down conversions attempts by Oregon, Washington still trailed by 4 with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. After Oregon failed to convert another fourth down to end the game, Washington's QB Michael Penix Jr. connected with Roma Dunze for a game-winning touchdown after a drive spanning just 2 plays. And then with 4 seconds left on the clock, one timeout remaining, Oregon kicker Camden Lewis missed a 43-yard field goal attempt to tie the game, which gave the Huskies the 3-point win.
I will remember I was at a wedding reception, did not get to watch the finale. I had a lot up on my phone. But yeah, that was I think I stepped out to actually watch the ending, but if I recall, or maybe I saw the highlight, I can't remember. But yeah, it was quite the exhilarating game. I was very upset to have missed it.
And it was just like, especially for me, it was really the first time I had like for an entire year been very intentional about watching the Pac-12 after dark.
About time.
And unfortunately, it was
That
the
one wasn't even
last
after dark.
year.
Dark. It was prime time.
Well, this one wasn't, but just the Pac-12 in general.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the first time I'd really paid attention to a lot of these teams in the West and some of these games between each other. Obviously, I would watch if they would play an East Coast team, but it was different to watch them. And then the final Pac-12 championship game. Dave, unfortunately, was at this game, and it was their first top 5 matchup in the rivalry. And that was when or Washington was number 3, was 12-0, undefeated. Oregon was number 5, only had the one loss, and they unfortunately lost again, which kept them out of the playoff. Washington ended up beating Texas. Did they beat Texas to go to the national championship game against Michigan? Because Michigan beat Bama.
No. TCU.
Wash, Washington. No, that was
No,
the year
wait.
before when Michigan
Yeah,
lost to
Michigan beat
TCU.
TCU. No. Oh yeah, Michigan lost TCU. Yeah. Yeah, Texas, right?
Let's see, a 2023 CFB playoff, which
Yeah, it would have
was
been
Texas. Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was a close game. Yeah. So that's the rivalry. Holy cow. This is great for all of you Oregon and Washington fans. This is nothing new. I apologize for the last, 45 minutes of getting everyone else up to speed. Obviously, you guys are aware of this, but I really wanted to paint that picture of how intense of a rivalry this is, and more importantly, how deserving of a trophy it is, I
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
what it really comes down
That's
to.
the fact that these guys don't have a trophy to play for is criminal with all
Yes.
because we knew, I knew, how hated and heated this rivalry is. But like all of the additional details. Like I didn't know about the pick, didn't know about the point. Um I think a lot of people, know what happened in 2023, but like the history behind it is crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Constant dumping of gasoline on fire.
Yeah. And now we're on to our idea. So how do you want to do this? We didn't really talk about this, listeners. We have a pretty solid idea of what we want this to look like. We haven't fleshed out everything. I will just tell you that this is very much a prototype, and we welcome any kind of feedback to this. And I think we definitely have enough of an idea to share with you guys, but I definitely think there's opportunity now to add things, and then even after this to add things.
Can we do a quick pause? Because I'm doing the
Sure.
fly dance over here, and then we can get
Okay.
into it.
Yeah, let's do a quick pause.
Quick pause. And we're back. And we are back. And that was a good break. It was very timely. All right. So I guess we should get into probably just talk a little bit maybe about like the ideation of it and
Yep.
then get yeah. So when we were thinking about this trophy, obviously, we looked for the common thread here, right? Obviously, the Cascade Clash, like in 2023, they were very much talking about it. I remember on game day, they were highlighting the Cascades and everything like that. And we're like, okay, where are some concepts that we can come up with? Like, okay, they share, there's two, it's a wilderness. There's two mountain ranges there. What are some things that we can kind of pull from that? So we knew that we wanted a wood element to be baked into this. We thought that featuring the mountain ranges would also make a lot of sense here. Um, we had some thoughts on like, do we want like, I happened to be at a wedding when we were talking, so like a big luge, like if we drink out of like a big, luge
Yeah,
with
we
the
did
mountain
talk about
ranges, so
that.
you can like pour some beer down and drink out of it and everything, So one side paint green, one side paint purple, we came up with a lot of stuff and we've continued to ideate on it over the years. And what we eventually landed on was, yes, definitely highlighting the mountains is very important for this. If it could be made of wood from the two regions, that would make a lot of sense. From the forests within the regions, that would make a lot of sense. Um, and as we kind of went back and forth, like how do you what do we like about trophies, right? Like we like size to trophies, as we know. We like things that are old, but obviously this can be new. So is there now I will say with the that cup, that could be something maybe we think about, maybe like similar to what we saw with the oh why am I blanking on the name now? UMass. Um
Southwick Cup.
Southwick,
Oh,
yeah. Southwick jug. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe we pull something from that now, but and revise this. But what we ultimately landed on was, and we also want something unique, right? Like that was, we also like things, that aren't very common. And something that we've not seen yet as far as rivalry trophies go. What's something we haven't seen yet, EJ?
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads. That's right. And that's what landed us on the pads of the Pacific. So, well, EJ, should I get into it now?
Yes,
Slow
please.
down.
So this is yeah. Well, in one of the other key components of at least for us, um, things that we love about trophies is wearing the trophies.
Hmm.
So like you have the
Yes.
golden hat in the Red River rivalry, which we think is fun, or just being able to do something with them, right? Like if
Hmm.
you can ride it, you can do something. So that led us to making this instead of a luge, with a very similar concept, to having it is a wearable shoulder pads.
So it would be wooden shoulder pads. We have some images that we'll share on Instagram that we just kind of came up with thanks to a little bit of leveraging Gen AI. Prompt engineering this and wooden the concept here is in the two of the designs that we have, they are wooden shoulder pads. Obviously like football shoulder pads. But on the one shoulder pad is Mount Rainier and a W for the University of Washington, right? A purple W. The shoulder pads are, a standard brown wood. The W would
Oh,
be on there with purple. Yeah,
well, I will say I we can even go a bit more specific there.
yeah. Let's
So
do
not
it.
only are we just going to use wood, but a very rare, and again, sorry for you Oregonians, you're going to roll your eyes because you're already aware of this, but there's a very famous type of wood, myrtle wood, which is a very expensive wood. The trees can grow up to, myrtle trees can grow up to 60 to 120 feet, have a lifespan of over 200 years. So there's a very good chance we can make this, even though it's new, from an old material, but we're
Right.
thinking we would ideally like this to be a myrtle wood.
Yes. Yes. So you have Mount Rainier on the one shoulder pad with the W for Washington, and then Mount Olympus, right? Or
Hood.
Mount Hood, sorry, Mount Hood on the other shoulder pad with an O for Oregon that's in green. And that it would just be I think on the back perhaps is where we have some plaques, right? Maybe like add in a plaque on the back there.
I am picturing now that I'm thinking about this. I thought about this earlier today, and this was a nice little addition. Mike has no idea, and because this was kind of part of it, we didn't want this to be completely fully fledged out. We wanted to give ourselves some freedom, freedom of creativity,
Creative
free,
license.
yeah, I guess so. Um, is what do you think about? So yes, I think the plaques should be on the back. I'm picturing, and again, this might not be a good idea. Please tell me. But on shoulder pads, typically there are like a back pad that kind of flaps. That
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
comes somewhat flirts with your tailbone.
yeah.
Sometimes kind of flaps around on your little buttocks area. Um,
Yes.
what if that was like something similar? That would be the scores, and then it can become something similar to the old oaken bucket that ends up being like drag, like
Oh,
just like
score wall.
picture like the Cleveland Browns famous jersey where it's all the quarterbacks and they just keep like adding a piece every time to the back of the new quarterbacks for the Browns.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I'm picturing maybe something that could be fun, big, long on the back of it. That's where we could potentially add games as we move forward. Maybe not
The
add all 100, to this point, but maybe moving forward.
the only hazard there being that if it is a wearable and you're running around the field with it, it's just going to get trampled on and potentially your pieces falling off.
It's like the bride, right? It's no
Yeah.
different than old oaken bucket. That's a lot of like of pieces in that as well that you have to figure out how to do. Anyway, it was just an idea. I think it's something to do on the back with the plaques, but I
Yeah.
thought it could be a fun thing to have like almost like a train, like a wedding dress
Yeah.
train or
Yeah. Yeah.
a head train that would go down. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's what we're thinking, guys. I mean, that's kind of the concept here. You're pulling in, the beautiful scenic nature of the schools, the two mountains that are right there, using wood that's native to the region that's very old and historic, and it's wearable. It's something that's never been done before. And it's pretty nice looking. I mean, we will share these images that we pulled we pulled together from leveraging LLMs for this. But yeah, it definitely I think could be something that to add a little bit extra flavor to the rivalry.
what do you think about a base? So I was trying to think about this earlier. Something that the shoulder pads could be placed upon that was like specific to the trophy. So I'm thinking like beyond just wearing it, like the idea would be hopefully putting it on display at one of the two universities as well. What do you think a base could potentially look like that? Obviously, it could be removed from.
I
Um,
think, I think maybe you get like a cert like a log from one of the trees and get
mhm.
like a live edge type of base, right? That you have on there like the pads of the Pacific, right? And then you have a just like a pole sticking up from that then you can rest the shoulder pads on.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Ooh,
And
ooh, just
oh,
thought of this.
okay,
Cowboy collar that's like a wave. Like a crashing wave is the cowboy collar for the Pacific Ocean.
okay,
As like a little, so like just on the back is a cowboy collar, like like
yeah.
have like a wave there. Yeah.
I do like that. It almost would almost look like a mullet too. It'd kind of
Yeah,
just
like
be like a
a
nice
little
little.
white cap, a little
Yeah.
white cap wave coming out of the back. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I do like that too. I think that would be, yeah, that'd be really cool too.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. See, I like this.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of gonna be it. So for us, in this particular case, like Mike had said, we will post some rough ideas here. So not it's gonna be a couple iterations. Obviously, you can do the shoulder pads to look various different ways. Um, but yeah, I think that general idea is one that we really think is unique as well as specific to this rivalry itself and the region itself. And honestly, it just be another fun piece of college football lore, and definitely to this rivalry itself.
Mhm.
So let us know what you think. If you think this is a good idea, we're definitely gonna do our best. The game, so this is early October, the 1st of October, and the game is played always at the end of the year, the last game of the year. So we have some time here, and I would love to start to kind of stoke that fire and get some feedback from all you guys, especially the alum and fans of both Washington and Oregon, to see if this is something you guys are, even interested in having a trophy. I think you definitely should.
Mhm.
And, let us know about this idea, because we would love to truly get a good idea hashed out and start to get the right people involved. Because I think
Yeah.
if there's enough people interested in this and excited about this, the rest of that falls into place, at
Easily.
least from our experience researching a lot of these other rivalries.
Yeah. Yeah. The kids are going to be into it, obviously. Get a little bit extra swag for the W. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Do you have anything else?
No, man. I think that's it.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week. Follow us on Instagram at whiskers.whiskies, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then also let's get this rivalry a proper trophy. So please help us, give us feedback, and then also just help us promote this thing. If you don't mind sharing our post, we're going to try and post all of the various, like Mike had mentioned, NIL collectives and student associations. So if you also know even other just like podcast hosts that are specific to following those teams, beat writers, et cetera, et cetera. So let us know if there's anyone you think would be interested in this, and we would definitely send it out there. But really excited about this idea, and really hope this comes to fruition.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And join us next week when we talk about the battle for the bones. For Mike, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Cheers, boys.